Welcome back to the STEM Career Accelerator. This is Bobby, and today we are going to get deep in how to find your purpose. There are some key considerations for turning a growth mindset towards purpose. Remember, purpose is the earlier step in our three-step career development process: purpose, practice, and expertise. We need to be thinking about childhood influences, our passions and our interests, our talents and skills, our personality, life-changing experiences, and limiting beliefs. So I'm going to try to go through each of these in a little bit more detail through this lesson. Childhood influences are important because we need to consider that the roles that we had as a child affect us as we continue to grow into adulthood. And the role that your caretakers had in childhood also impacted your development. And ultimately, as adults, we can take on these childhood roles and the roles of caretakers. And things can get quite complex in that process. Now, we're not going to dig super deep into your childhood because that's something that might be better to do in therapy. But we want to kind of take a broad view at your roles and get looking at those and look at those roles from as far back as birth. Of course, you probably didn't come out of the womb with a role, but you very quickly, at least into your late toddler years, say 5, 6 years old, at least, you start to develop into certain roles within your family, within your friend groups, within your community. And so those are the sorts of things that we want to be focusing on. So have a think about these questions. Are you still living in your childhood roles? And how does that make you feel? Are those roles helpful to you or unhelpful to you? And are you living in your authentic desires for your roles right now? Or are you living in roles that aren't really your desire, but that you feel like you need to do them? If you were to let go of your current roles, the ones that don't serve you, who would that affect? Would it affect your friends, your family? How would it affect you? And cost-benefit analysis is important throughout the change process and the career transformation process and the life transformation process. But we can break that down into little bits, and we can look at your current roles and say, what are the costs and the benefits of your current roles? If one of your current roles is to be a caretaker, what are the costs to you to be a caretaker? What are the benefits to you to be a caretaker? And if you could step out of your current role and put it behind you, think about what your ideal role would look like. How different would that be from your current role? Your inner child is part of you, but you're the adult in charge now, and that ultimately is what matters in this process. It doesn't mean that your childhood doesn't and won't continue to influence you, but you are in control. You are in the driver's seat. Passion is something that I think we need to be a little cautious with. And I think there's a key distinction with passion, and it can be summed up as you may develop a passion, but passion is not the goal. We shouldn't be working towards finding a passion. That's not really going to be helping us in the career transformation and life transformation process. Here's why passion is not purpose, and therefore not the goal. Because the goal in the first step is to find your deeper purpose. Passion is something that you develop. It's not something that you find. We tend to kind of just talk about finding your passion. But the truth is like the drummer on the left side of the screen, this person has practiced for months, years, many hours, often thousands of hours, in order to get good enough to actually entertain other people, to produce music that actually moves other people, and in that process to become passionate about playing the drums. Passion is also something that can happen accidentally. It's not necessarily something that there's a system to work towards. Passion arises from deliberate practice. And deliberate practice isn't always something that we enjoy doing. I can think back to trying to learn instruments as a kid, and there were a lot of times that I really disliked learning those instruments. It was really hard. It was emotionally draining to feel like I was making mistake after mistake after mistake, like I was never going to become good at playing an instrument. And I never did, because I quit, because I didn't work hard enough to develop that passion. There's still something in me that loves music. There's still something in me that says, Bobby, let's learn to play an instrument. And I wonder if you have something similar that you can point to in your life. Passion takes time. The example I told you about myself, I became impatient. I wasn't going to give myself the time that it would take to develop a passion for playing an instrument. And the truth is, I only tried a couple of instruments. Maybe I needed to try different instruments to figure out which one was going to work for me and which one I may have had the capacity to develop a passion for. You got to try a lot of things before you commit to something enough to actually work on it enough to actually get to the point that you develop a passion for it. And I mentioned earlier, passion isn't always enjoyable. There are lots of parts of practice to get good at something, to get good enough that you become passionate about it. And that process is not always enjoyable, but it can be worth the effort. Passion is not actually something that requires a lot of talent or skill. If you want to be successful in your career, or really at anything that you want to do, it's going to require some sort of talent and skill. And skills are definitely something you can develop. It's debated whether talent is an innate process or whether it's something that you can develop. That's why we're going to focus on skills throughout most of this career development process. Passion takes practice. It takes deliberate practice in order to get good enough, to love something enough, to become passionate about it. And when you have a purpose behind why you're doing something, why you're practicing so hard, that helps to amplify your passion. So purpose and practice are intertwined when it comes to passion. And passion in life is more important than passion in career. So the passion that you have for what you do in your life, for your family, for your friends, for your hobbies, in many ways, that passion is actually more important than the passion that you develop for your career, because your career is there to serve your life. And being skilled at your job is far more important than being passionate about your work. Because if you're focusing on, oh, I wish I was passionate about this, that's a negative statement. You're wishing for something that you don't have. How does that make you feel? Negative. If you're focused on developing a skill, that is the seed from which the plant grows that becomes passion, the tree of passion. That's why we want to focus on skills. So be skilled at your job. Don't worry about the passion part. It may or may not come. Talents and personal qualities. Connecting our best and essential personal traits to what we find purpose with in our work is really going to help us get through figuring out what our purpose is and why we want to do it. So think about, what are your talents, your qualities, your traits? And I want you to make a list, and you can use what I'm about to show you on the screen for brainstorming. So think about whether you are enthusiastic, are you energetic, are you optimistic, are you compassionate, are you direct? What are your talents, your qualities, and your traits? Now, you don't have to necessarily identify each of these as whether it's a talent, a quality, or a trait. You can just make a list of the things that resonate with you, but go beyond this list. Come up with other talents, qualities, and traits that you think apply to you. This list is just full of examples. You can pause now and get started with this. Skills. Skills, skills, skills. Skills are what matter in today's marketplace. If you don't have skills, I'm not quite sure that you're ever going to have the career that you want. Jobs don't hire you because they like you. They hire you because you have skills. And in order to understand where you're at with your skills, we need to take an inventory. And we can do that using what's called a skill set table. There is a downloadable spreadsheet for this. This spreadsheet is the spreadsheet that I use for myself. It hasn't been tabulated with my levels of skill, but it has all the different things in it that over my career have become important skills. Working as a geologist specialized in landslide hazard assessment. So there's going to be a lot of things in here, like paleo flood studies, remote sensing data analysis, and geochemistry, that these may have no applicability to you or what you do for your job or any skills that you may ever develop. That's not the point. The point is that this gives you a format and a structure in order to get in here and help you to understand where your skills are now. So you're going to use the key to rate yourself and say whether or not you have no knowledge or skill in this. And it's great to get those things on this table. The things that you know that you need, but you don't have yet. Those are so important. Get those on this table and rank them as 0 if you have to. But if you have a little bit of coursework or some background knowledge, give yourself a 1. And then work your way up to see whether you think that you qualify as an expert, whether you have a specialist skill that you would rank as a 5 in any of the skill areas that you put onto your skill set table. Remember, this is not just about hard technical skills. This is also about soft skills, communication skills, administrative skills, those sorts of skills. And then track your progress and continue to reformulate your goals based on what you learn through the career development process about either the current job and what you're trying to do in your current job, or your new career or your new job looking forward. So check out that downloadable spreadsheet. Personality is complex. Our purpose arises from who we are. Most of the psychological community accepts, at least in part, what's called the 5-factor model of personality. And those 5 factors in each individual that relate to how our personality develops and the qualities and traits that we have in our personality are related to neuroticism, extroversion, openness to experiences. So important. This personality trait gives you a lot of leverage in your career development process. Agreeableness, conscientiousness. Whether you're higher on the neurotic scale and you tend to be a bit scatterbrained, high energy, a bit erratic, whether you are high on the extroversion scale and you tend to be very social and bombastic, and whether you tend to be high on the openness scale, which you're an open book and you'll talk about anything and listen to anything and you'll consider anything and you'll ask all the questions. Or if you're high on the agreeableness scale and you agree with everything, you don't negate anything, you agree with it all. And maybe you're high on the conscientiousness scale. And so you contemplate and think very deeply and consider others in everything that you do. The 5-factor model of personality also relates to a branch of psychology called socionics, which focuses on how we interact with others. And you'll see some similarities here in the socionics methodology. You may be familiar with these types of 4-letter acronyms. They relate to extroversion, introversion, sensing and intuition, judgment and perception, thinking and feeling. Thinking and feeling are kind of juxtaposed, whether we're more thinking or more feeling in certain situations, whether we're more perceptive or more judging in certain situations, whether we're more sensing or intuitive in certain situations, and whether we're more extroverted or introverted in situations. Myers-Briggs brought this into what's called a type inventory, a personality type inventory, and it's abbreviated MBTI, and they came up with about 16 types, or specifically 16 types. And there's just 3 examples given here: the inspector, the giver, the craftsman. So the giver, for instance, is considered extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and judgmental. There's a download available with this lesson that will give you some links and some more information about doing free online assessments. Now, just a caveat here, I don't endorse any of these, and I don't provide you with any paid services for personality or career aptitude tests. The point of doing these is for educational purposes. It's for you to go through the process of considering how you might rank using these sorts of assessments. These sorts of assessments don't tell you everything about yourself or about your personality or about your career aptitude. They have many limitations, and while most of them are based in some sort of scientific rigor, the science necessarily isn't just presented to you in the free results. It's best that these results are interpreted by a psychologist, but please bring the results with you if you take any of these tests, and let's talk about them. Think through them, come up with questions you have about them. Oftentimes, it's just good to do this, and you may just laugh it off. So have fun with it and take it lightly. There's something that I like to call the purpose gap. This is when there is a split between things like what fulfills us in our life and what fulfills us at work. They may not be the same. What makes us happy versus what practically sustains our life. For instance, does money just make you happy? Or does money make you happy when you have enough of it because it practically sustains your life? What we're passionate about, and remember what I said about passion before, let's be cautious with this, and what we're responsible for. If you have kids, you're responsible for your kids. Are you passionate about being a parent? No judgment there, but it's something for you to consider. Those are the types of career purpose and life purpose gaps that we have. Do you experience any of these splits in your purpose? Do you have a purpose gap? There's a way to start closing this purpose gap. First of all, figuring out what knowledge and skills you're applying when you feel joy is going to help you get closer to merging your life and work, your career life gap. Knowing the order of your priorities and knowing why they are priorities is going to help to close this gap. These are the sorts of things that we'll be looking at as we get deeper into mindset and deeper into prioritizing things in your goal setting process. Life-changing experiences have a major impact on our development. There are career-changing experiences that have a major impact on how our work life develops. The goal with this exercise is to find patterns in how you respond to these life and career-changing experiences. So I want you to make a list of all of the significant life and career events that you've had. Simplify those events into a list that summarizes experiences in 5 to 10 year blocks. So for example, you could do 5 to 15 years or 5 to 10 years old. You could do 30 to 40 years old. You could do 25 to 30 years old. However it works for you to break it down, whether you're more of a lumper and you want to do it in all 10-year blocks, or you're more of a splitter and you want to do it all in 5-year blocks. Break it down, simplify the wording of those events as life and career events, summarize the experiences within 5-year or 10-year blocks of time. Be gentle with yourself in this process. Much of what I'm talking about in this lesson could bring up a lot of deep and difficult emotions. So be gentle with yourself, ask questions, work through the process at your own pace. So let's reflect within ourselves for a moment about the types of life and career changing experiences we may have had. Think about the turning points, the climaxes, the crossroads. These can be what we might feel as emotionally positive or emotionally negative experiences, but these are the big things, the big changes. What lessons have you learned? Were there hard lessons? Were there happy lessons? Do you have feelings of unfinished business or incompleteness? These are really important factors in telling us about where your purpose is and where you want to take your purpose. What events were inspirational, were energizing, were motivational? This is going to help us understand what you really want, your authenticity. Were there experiences that caused you to have a change of values or a change of priorities? What goals have you achieved? Do you feel like you have a sense that there's a trajectory to your life? Are there things that have happened and you're like, man, I've been training for this and now I got it? Do you feel like you have a vocation or a calling? What's your main focus day to day, month to month, year to year? What's your main focus in life and career? There is a thought exercise associated with this lesson, and I want you to download that and work through that as well. And next, we're going to talk about limiting beliefs. The goal here is to eliminate limiting beliefs. And if we can't eliminate them, to try to minimize those limiting beliefs, minimize their impact on our transformational process. But first, we have to identify these limiting beliefs. And then we need to reframe those limiting beliefs once we can identify them. Because limiting beliefs are like a rope that's all tangled and knotted up. But reframing those beliefs requires us to find that knot, to analyze it, to start pulling it apart, stretching that rope back out until eventually we've got the rope all untangled. Then we need to do the reframing, which means we need to neatly put that rope back together, coil it up, wrap it around, secure it, so that we move from these unhelpful limiting beliefs to these helpful reframed beliefs. Here are some examples of common limiting beliefs. These are the types of statements you may say to yourself that indicate that you have limiting beliefs around certain factors. Good things come to those who wait. Waiting is different from patience. Having patience is part of this process. Remember, I mentioned patience and persistence in particular. Those are important factors in the career transformation process. Good things come to those who wait. Let's change that. Good things come to those who are patient. Still not quite right. Patience just doesn't get you good things. Doing something gets you to good things. Having a goal and taking action on it gets you good things. Good things come to those who wait. Puts you in a passive position. It puts you in the position to be limited, to say, oh, well, if I just sit here and I wait, good things are going to happen. While that may be kind of a positive oriented mindset, it's not necessarily what's going to have anything actually happen for you. You have to take action. It needs to be positive action, proactive as much as possible instead of reactive. And after you take action, take more action. Take as much action as you can until the moment when you're like, okay, I do need to be patient now. Something else needs to happen and it's out of my control. Money is the root of all evil. First of all, this is a cognitive distortion. All or always. That's a cognitive distortion because it says that things are all or nothing. So money is all evil, essentially. That's not true. People use money for good all the time. People give money away to charity. People help out a friend or a family member in need. We did not create the monetary systems. It is very difficult to escape the monetary systems. While we could say that we're trapped in them, I like to look at it as we exist in these systems. We need as much as possible to make them work for ourselves so that we can put good into the world. There are evil people with lots of money, but that doesn't mean that money is the root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. This is a fact. But it's also a limiting belief. Money does not grow on trees. That is true. When we think about it, what this statement is really saying is that there's not enough money for us to access. We can't have more money. Money doesn't just appear. The truth is that you need to set goals and work towards it. Money doesn't grow on trees, but your wealth does grow when you put positive action into it. You have to pay your dues. This is so toxic. This mentality is really, really harmful, really toxic. Just because others have paved the way doesn't mean that you have to pave the way for others. It doesn't mean that you have to make your life hard because other people have had hard lives. Life can be hard. That's true. But it doesn't mean that we have to find the hard parts and go toward the hard parts and always, if it feels easy or light, then it's like, oh no, we need to go like negative with this and we need to like find something that's really difficult to do. We need to do that instead. We got to pay our dues. Life is hard. That's in a similar vein. Life is hard. Life can be easy too. Life can be somewhere in between. Most of life is somewhere in between. There's a lot of suffering in life. Suffering can also be something like, I'm suffering because I'm looking at a super cute puppy. I can't touch it. I can't pet it. I can't cuddle it because it's behind a window. And I'm just like, oh, I just want to hold that puppy. I just want to pet that puppy. That's suffering, but it's also joyful. It's not just one thing. Life is so many things. Life is hard is a limiting belief. Life is many things. No pain, no gain. Again, kind of toxic. While I agree, it takes hard work in order to gain the things that we want in our life. It doesn't mean that hard work is always going to be painful. It doesn't mean that the process to get something that we want is always going to be painful. It's a limiting belief. Don't burn your bridges. It's important that you conduct yourself the way that you want to conduct yourself for the outcomes that you want. Burning bridges is something that is not always in your control. Sometimes it's good to burn a bridge. Sometimes there's toxic people in your life or at your work, toxic bosses. Do you need them in your life? Probably not. Do you need to do everything you can to maintain a superficial relationship with them so that you can get that recommendation from them later? Is getting fired the worst thing that could ever happen to you? No. People rebound from burned bridges, from getting fired from all sorts of what might be viewed as negative experiences. Those are growth experiences. Those are experiences that catapult us. Those are life-changing experiences that push us forward. It's up to us if we want them to hold us back. And so if this felt heavy, I don't want you to worry. It's totally okay to feel heavy after doing this deep digging. Remember to breathe deep. I really like what's called 4x4 breathing. 4x4 breathing is we take a moment to check in with our body, and in that kind of center part below your chest, above your stomach, if you feel a tightness, you feel short of breath, you feel like you're not breathing enough, take a moment, put your hand over that place just below the center of your chest. Take one deep breath and let it go. And then do 4x4 breathing. 4x4 breathing is when we do 4 cycles of breathing in through our nose for 4 seconds and then breathing out through our mouth for 4 seconds. Or doing in through your nose and out through your nose. It's up to you what feels comfortable. And if it's also comfortable for you, I recommend that you close your eyes. It helps to close our eyes in these sorts of states when we're feeling heavy or we're feeling anxious or we're feeling sad. If we close our eyes, it tends to bring ourselves inward and allow us more balance because we're closing off our visual field. Breathing deep 4 times, breathe in once through your nose for 4 seconds, and out through the mouth for 4 seconds. And do that 4 times and see the change in your body and the settling of your mind. Take breaks as you go through this. If you get to the point where you start to become emotionally overwhelmed as you're working through the downloadables or the spreadsheet, if you feel overwhelmed, take a break. If you feel overwhelmed and going through this lesson, take a break. Go at the pace that you need to go. I've set this program up. It's achievable within a 12-week time frame, but you need to go at the pace that you need to go. And I will work with you at the pace that you need to go. And I will help motivate you if you want to push your pace. Looking forward to seeing you in the next lesson.